Hello everyone, I'm Ian from IMCampervans. So this video captures finalising all the electronics and also installing the Truma D4E, so the diesel and electric water heater and room heater.
I've been working a bit more on the electrics, so I hadn't insulated everything because I didn't have the right size heat shrink, so that's now all done. Everything's fully secured. The Multiplus Inverter is now all wired in. I've just got the two fuses actually to install and then test it. So that's that done. All the 230 volts mains is done, and I've ran two cables over here that will be tidied up later once I install the Truma. So there's one 230 volt AC supply for that, and there's also one for the fridge. So that'll be happening there. And then for the DC to DC converter, I previously ran these cables, so I've routed them through an existing plastic channel and routed them under. And then I've added a 40 amp fuse here, a MIDI fuse, and I've obviously connected up the ground over there. So that'll be ready for testing shortly.
This is the electrical and electronic system, all fully finished, all the covers mounted and fully tested and fully functional. One of the final additions is installing the Bluetooth dongle to the inverter. You don't actually need this, you've got a switch on the underside where you can actually function it manually, but I think the Bluetooth dongle is a game changer. It just makes everything seamless.
So the messy area here is the supplies, the cold and hot water lines, the mains line and the 12 volt line for the water system. So we've bought a Truma D4E, so a diesel electric system. So I'm planning on actually installing that in this area here. So this is just the preview before it's installed, and then we'll work away at that. So I've planned the layout of where the Truma is going to be. I need a hole here for the rain valve, and a smaller hole here for the overflow valve. I bought a kit from Truma, so everything's supplied, but the hose isn't supplied for the drain valve, so I'm using a bit of water line. I've connected it up with a Jubilee clip. It probably didn't need the Jubilee clip, but I thought I just don't want it to leak into the flooring. So it's the drain valve and it's a combined frost protection valve. So I've had to drill an oversized hole in the van so that I've got actually room for the diameter of the Jubilee clip. Otherwise it's quite straightforward, but that bit's a wee bit of a faff. So this is the Truma D4E, so it's diesel and electric. It's a reasonably big job. So what I've done at the moment is I've mounted the boiler to the floor. I've actually mounted it's a combined waste and frost protection drain valve. So that's done. I've plumbed in cold water, so it will come from the pump through the damper into the T-piece, go straight to the blue line over there to go to the taps in the kitchen and the shower. And then this comes in actually to the heat exchanger and the Truma, and then the hot water will come out here and it will run into the same kitchen hot and shower hot. I've got the pressure relief going through the floor, and obviously that's through the floor too. So that's currently where we are at this point in time. So I started working before I started videoing, and I've connected the flue at this point. So basically it's like there's an exhaust flue inside the fresh air duct, so that connects into the boiler here into the Truma. It clamps in place with a kind of ear clamp, and then you put this over the outer circumference and you fasten up. I've got a rough routing here for the moment for the flue, and I've cut out the plywood lining to get access to the area I think I want to put the flue. I've had to be really careful here, because I've got the cables coming up here, so I had to be really careful just to come through the plywood, but all the cables are safely tucked away. So cut this insulation out, and then I'll drill a pilot hole, and then I'll drill the hole saw from the outside to cut the hole for the flue, and then I'll get this all connected up and assembled. That's the plan.
I drilled a pilot hole of where I want the flue to be, and then I've masked off the area, so I'm ready to start drilling. I bought this hole saw from Amazon, and I normally buy that sort of stuff from Screwfix. So it got the job done, the one from Amazon, but it wasn't the best quality, so I wouldn't do that again. I test fitted the flue and then removed the masking tape, cleaned up the area, and I painted the bare metal, and then I fitted the flue to the van wall with self-tapping screws.
So what I've done here, it's quite difficult to get the camera in, but I have cut back all the insulation. I've mounted the flue on the outside, so I've got the actual exhaust, which is the inner tube, which has also got some insulation in it, so that's mounted there. Really quite difficult to get that on because the flue's angled up internally, and there's, you know, it's quite difficult to bend that exhaust, you know, without crimping it or compressing it or damaging it. So, but that's it in place and it's fully seated onto the flue. I've then got the clamp to tighten up, and then after that I put the black outer fresh air inlet over the outside circumference of the flue flange, and then I tighten that up with a clamp, and that'll be that mounted.
This is an external view of the Truma D4E flue. So I've got the metal part screwed to the van wall, and then there's a plastic cover that mounts to the metal flue. Next was the diesel pump. So this is a picture of the diesel pump. Just be careful to make sure you install it with the correct flow direction. And then there's the kind of Teflon diesel fuel line and the signal cable and power cable. So I've ran them from the Truma all the way in the underside of the van. So it goes through the floor and it runs to actually pretty much under the cab and the passenger seat. I haven't filmed this part just because of access, but I've bolted the fuel pump to a bracket on the underside of the floor, as I say, under the cab, roughly under the driver's seat. And I've also heat insulated the diesel fuel line and the signal power cable as it's routed in the underside of the van. So this is a tool for removing and installing the fuel sender unit. So it just goes onto a 1/2 inch drive ratchet. These are adjustable, so this is the right spacing for the Peugeot Boxer, and it's got the sort of fork like that. It goes into the outer circumference. There's like lugs, so it goes on like that. Without this tool, I think it would be very, very difficult. This was £16, but well worth it. So I've drilled a pilot hole in the top of the sender unit in between the two fuel lines. Before I did that, I tried to cover up all the internals just to protect it from plastic swarf. I've drilled a larger diameter hole to insert the fitting with the seal, and I've got the black hose in the top and the bottom terminated with C-clamps, and then I've got the Teflon line going down into the sender unit, and from the top side is running to the fuel pump.
So I didn't film all of the work here because there was just too much going on and the space is quite limited. So what I've done here, this is the fitting that I've taken this apart, I've drilled a hole, I've mounted the fitting here with the seal on top, and this rubber pipe with the two C-clamps is then, the white line is the diesel line. So that's from the tank going to the diesel pump. This is the diesel pickup from the tank to the diesel system. This is the return, and this is the breather. Obviously the signal cable and the power for everything else. This was a pretty difficult job. In hindsight, I was thinking I should maybe have taken that seat out because the access there was pretty difficult. The actual sender unit is fairly fragile. There's a lot of mechanical moving parts, like the float for the fuel gauge and stuff like that. There's a fair bit of electronics in it, so it is quite delicate. It's very difficult to get in there. The outer ring here, I bought the tool. I'll show you that in a different video. I don't think you could do this without the tool. I read about people using a chisel and a hammer. I think that would be very, very dangerous. So the actual plumbing is not difficult at all. What is difficult is the access. There's not, even from the underside of the unit, there's not a lot of access to actually tighten that up, and it's fairly fragile, so you have to be careful. The positioning of this fitting is absolutely critical. You can see there's not a lot of room between here and here, so there's really only one location it will go. And there's also like an indentation in top and on the plastic top, so your seal won't sit flat there. So I must be honest, I think it's a fairly tricky job. The actual plumbing is not difficult, but the access I think was pretty difficult. So there we go. But that's us done, and I've started the engine, tested it, it all looks okay. Not tested the diesel pump yet. That's the cover back on and screwed down. It does have an O-ring
on the lid is not critical, but obviously stop any fumes or anything else coming back into the cab. That's us all back together, neat and tidy. I 3D printed a grille to allow air circulation from the living area back through into the Truma, as specified in the Truma manual. This has shown the hot air duct from the Truma into the garage, just to allow it a wee bit of heat there, and I've got 3 other ducts going into the living area. The Truma is still to be fully boxed in, but allowing for air ventilation. And this is the other side of the garage, just with all the electrics, and obviously there's quite a large area for storage, although it's a bit messy at present. I ran 12 volts power in the signal cable up the rear pillar to the controller. It's a very intuitive, easy to use controller. So that's the end of this video. I hope you found it useful. There'll be more vlogs coming in this build series, so don't forget to like and subscribe to see future content. Thanks for watching.